Welcome in. This is Hype Factor, a fantasy critic podcast for all the fantasy critic enthusiasts out there who just can't get enough talking about fantasy critic. This is an emergency episode of Hype Factor. I am John, aka John32. I am joined by my good friend Marcus. Marcus, how are you doing today?
I'm good, John. I am excited. I guess we're at the end now of Summer Games Fest. There's been so much gaming news. It's been exciting to watch it all unfold, and I'm excited to get talking with you about some of these announcements.
Yeah, this is episode 8 or 7.5, depending on how you look at it, probably 8. Usually our regularly scheduled programming would come out in a couple of weeks at the end of the month, but we decided we needed an emergency broadcast of Hype Factor as we had a slew of game announcements over the past weekend, and the landscape of Fantasy Critic is shifting. So, you know, we won't be doing our other regular segments today. We won't be doing our pixel prognostications. We won't be going through too many of the details of the news. All of that will be back later this month with kind of our regularly scheduled program. For now, we wanted to jump into some emergency coverage to help you with your waiver wire pickups in advance of this week's processing of bids. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Topic of the month.
So the first up showcase, actually state of play, was Sony last week. On the same day, I think that Nintendo was releasing the midnight launch of their console. Sony had their state of play, and there was a number of games that were presented and shown. What we're going to talk to you today is only highlighting the games from the state of play, from the Xbox Showcase, from the Summer Game Fest that had Fantasy Critic relevance. And so, for the most part, that means things that are coming out in 2025 that are dated, that have value. We're going to just run through it, try and give you our quick thoughts, our rundown, our research on what we saw and where we think there's true value for your waiver wires. And obviously, this is timely because what we want to do is make sure everybody out there is remembering to make those pickups in the critical juncture that is this week, this coming Saturday. Marcus, any thoughts before we get going with this Sony state of play?
Well, I think that we start out pretty good here. There's a lot to talk about here with Sony, and I'm excited to get into it. Let's do it, John.
Let's do it. Okay, so one of the first things we saw was Lumina's Arise, which, showed really well. It has a 2025 date for release. There's no fixed release date, which can cause a little bit of anxiety, but overall, it looked great. I think a lot of people are hyped about this game. The previous entries into the series had good scores, probably in the low 80s, I believe, for the most part. And so I think there's a chance that this one is going to be a highly sought after pickup. Any thoughts on Luminous?
Well, I really like this one. This is you're starting off with a bang from my perspective. I thought that I had caught, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought I had caught a fall 2025 window for this. Maybe I'm wrong. Right. That gives me a little bit more confidence rather than just the nebulous 2025. And not only do Luminous games have, it's been a long time. I want to say probably 15-ish years at least since we've seen a Luminous game. I think the last one was probably on the PSP. Don't quote me on that, but it's been a while. They tended to score pretty good, but the folks that are making this this new Luminous game also made Tetris Effect connected, John.
Wow.
That was a real good game, and you just watching the trailer of Luminous, you can really get the sense that there are some similarities there in terms of the presentation.
People thought it was Tetris Effect too. Yeah. Anybody live reacting to that show had that Tetris Effect moment.
Yeah. So I like this one a lot. I think that I've actually got a bid in for Luminous Arise on one of my teams for this coming up bid period. So yes, I'm quite high on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they're not listening. Next up was Silent Hill F with a September 25th release coming up this fall. Now, Silent Hill is an interesting one because, depending on which title you're talking about within the series, it's had a mixed bag of scores. But I think this one is showing relatively well. I've noted that last weekend there was a number of bids that went in for this game, so I think others are thinking the same thing. I don't have spot on my roster for this one, Marcus, but it might not be the worst thing to go with a game that's showing well, that has a release date in September. At least it's going to drop sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm a little more down on this one than you. I think, John. Like I don't know. I think I'd let this one pass. I don't think that this really has the potential to hit the highs of the Silent Hill 2 remake that we saw, it was just last year, right? So I think it looks fine. I think probably fans of the genre will get something out of it, but I'm not sure that this is poised to score super high. So I think that I'd be okay letting this one go by.
Next up, Digimon Story Time Stranger with a release date of October 3rd. I would, on that same track, this is one that I'm letting slip by. I've already seen some online criticism of this game regarding frame rates, which, you know, if you're already starting out at that point, just, it's not worth the risk. Let's keep it moving. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there,
Well, I
Marcus.
mean, Digimon. I think we went over this when this game had first been announced earlier this year, and Digimon games don't score. At least recently, haven't scored. They're kind of in the mid 70s, so not super high. So yeah, I think this is an easy pass.
Next one may be a little bit harder to pass up on. Final Fantasy Tactics. This is one that I'm personally excited about. I think it's both going to be exciting as a new release of this game that I have not played before, but I know there's a significant following of this game. But also for fantasy critic purposes, it has a release date of September 30th. The original, from what I could see, had an 88 on Metacritic. I know that there's some reservations here. I don't know if you want to expand on them. For myself, this was one that I tried already to pick up and failed because I got outbid. But no, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where your head is at on this one.
I honestly, it's funny. So first off, we should probably say we picked the wrong unannounced Final Fantasy
Correct.
project
Correct.
to hype up last
Yes.
episode. But yeah, I'm not really sure what it is that is not like jumping out at me about this game. I think it'll probably score good. Like, but this game obviously has, its fandom, and it's very well thought of as a game. But I don't know. I could see low 80s for this one, which isn't bad, of course, and probably that's probably what the floor that you're looking at anyway. So, but I have a hard time seeing it high 80s. That's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
at. I'm not, and I don't even really know why. It's hard to describe. I just don't have the um maybe it's because the look of it. It looked very similar to the original game.
The
It didn't
original.
seem, yeah. So
Didn't have the glow up that some of the other RPGs are getting. I mean that is one thing is like when you have a game with that much of of a cult following, sometimes it sets the bar high, and
mhm,
people hold it to this like mythical standard that it can't
yeah,
necessarily reach. I just think that that secure floor is something that's super attractive. Like
yeah,
for me personally, one of the reasons I was going after it was to just kind of anchor,
yeah,
a remaster slot on my team, and so for that purpose, it was going to serve kind of as like I'd be happy with a low 80 in that regard versus taking a chance on something else.
hmm,
So I think it's just maybe a matter of where your team is currently in the season. Um, but yeah, I do think that this is one potentially that will get some attention. We'll see how it actually plays out. I mean, we'll add it to our pixel prognostications when September rolls around, and
that's right.
we'll see where it ends up landing. Next up, baby steps. We've seen this game a couple times. It did come with a release date of September the 8th. I'm I still am a pass on this for fantasy critic purposes.
Yeah. I don't get this game, John. I think the comedy is lost on me. To me, I do not see the appeal. I think what's the name? Do you remember the name of the dev?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
Oh man, he's done a few games. And I guess the similar irreverent humor, similar humor style. Are you looking him up right now? Anyways,
Yeah, Gabe Kuzillo.
no,
It looks like it's a team. Well, it's published by Devolver. Um, the developers Gabe Kuzillo, Maxi Boach, and Bennett Fodi.
that's him, Bennett Fodi.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, um, anyways, yeah, it's just not a me game. I feel like it doesn't look that good. If
Hmm.
the humor is not hitting for you, it certainly doesn't look like a visual feast. So I don't know. I think this is an easy pass. I could see
Yeah.
this being anywhere from honestly low 60s to low 80s, maybe at the highest. But I think it's probably going to fall somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, at best, I think it's going to be a polarizing score
Yeah,
range from reviewers, and that just will bring it down, right?
yeah.
Next up, Hiragami. with a September 3rd release date. This is one where there's currently a demo available, so if you are interested, go right ahead and give it a shot. It's developed and published by Bandai Namco. This is getting a lot of hype coming out of the weekend.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know enough about this game, but I can see that there's it's permeating kind of the conversation of what was shown, people's excitement. It's an origami
Yeah.
style game. I don't know enough about it. I don't know if you had any thoughts on this one.
Well, personally, this is one that was probably one of the highlights of the show for me. I really like this style of game. I like the art style as well, like the paper craft. Gave me some tearaway vibes, which is a game that's really near and dear to my heart. And so I like it. I wasn't sure that I saw enough to make it feel like it stood out to get those potential high scores. So I think it'll be a fine game. I think it'll score okay. I'm not sure I'm willing to bid on it because I don't know that it's
Take a
going
risk.
to. Yeah, I feel like this could be high 70s and be great, and I really enjoy it. But that's not exactly what I want on my rosters. So
Yeah. It is
yeah,
getting a lot of bids. So looking at the bids that were processed this past Saturday evening after the state of play was shown, it is getting a
yeah,
pretty good pickup. So it definitely is resonating with some. So yeah, maybe an option, but not necessarily the best option. Next up was Everybody Golf's Hot Shots, which we had already seen previously at the Nintendo Direct earlier this year. It has a September 5th release date. I'm looking to pass on this only because I just don't know where this is going to land. And it was a bit difficult to find details on where the past Hotshot games landed. It was a bit mixed, bit of a
yes,
mixed bag. So not necessarily wanting to take a risk on this one.
yeah. No, I agree.
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound did get dated for July 31st. I can't recall if we already knew the July 31st date, but I did think that the game showed really well. So I think if you had picked this and you have it in your on your roster, you're pretty happy. I did note that they brought in like remastered NES music into the game, and that's where like my nostalgia heartstrings. And I'm like, damn it, that I wish I had
Yeah,
this on my team because I think this is actually going to go very well for those
I
that
I
have it.
had this on one of my rosters and dropped it, and I don't know what I dropped it for. I'm I can't remember what I dropped it for, but I'm kind of regretting it because this looks incredible. This is made by it's the Game Kitchen. I want to say the Game Kitchen. It's the same folks that did the Blasphemous games, but they also did earlier this year, if you recall, John, the Stone of Madness, which is one we were
Mm,
thinking as might be a bit of a sleeper right at the beginning of the year,
hmm I
and it
remember
scored kind of poorly. I think like
it did.
low 70s, right?
72.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that I think was in the back of my head with this new Ninja Gaiden game, and man, it looks good though. I think that
Yeah.
this is going to be much more like the Blasphemous 2 score as opposed to the Stony Madness score.
I think so. If you go back to that Stone of Madness, it was a small, like I think the a subset of the developer studio. I don't want to comment too much because I'm not
Yeah,
intimately familiar with it, but I remember they had brought in another team to kind of work on that particular game. They had absorbed another team. So yeah, definitely. I think it's may not even worth talking about though, because likely it's gone in every
yeah,
league that we're
yeah,
talking about. Ragebound is
totally.
probably already picked up. The next one though probably isn't, and that's Cairn with a November 5th release date. It's described on Steam as the Dark Souls of climbing games. And if you watch the trailer, you'll know why. There's a demo out now, so people can go and try it out. I've seen a lot of buzz around this game. It's not necessarily for me, but I can understand from reading some of the previews and seeing what people are talking about why it's getting the hype that it is. I think people are expecting this to be like the next breakout game that has, a surprise score. I can't confirm that that's going to happen, but I definitely know that there's probably value here. Um, just because it's probably not on people's teams. It probably wasn't on a lot of people's radars. And this is now with a November 5th date, something you can feel confident picking up. I know I had avoided it previously because there wasn't a release date. And good for those that had that early on their teams.
Well, and this I like this one a lot too. And these guys, they're called the Game Bakers, and they had made their previous game was Haven. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, John. It's kind of a RPG where you can play co-op or single player, but it's basically like two characters stranded on a planet. I played it for a little bit. It wasn't really my jam. So it's a very different genre, and they also did a game called Fury, which
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Fury I do know, and I do like that game.
yeah,
Hmm.
and so all very different genres. So they're kind of like all over the place with genres. But I think that this Cairn game, this new one, has some potential to really score quite well. Actually, I could see this in mid 80s. I really could see
Yeah,
this in the mid 80s.
yeah.
So that's what I'm high on for sure.
We also saw something I'm personally very excited about to purchase his Mortal Kombat collection with a 2025 date beside it. Categorized on Fantasy Critic as a remaster. So going back to what I was discussing earlier is, looking to fill a remaster slot. This might be a sneaky pickup to help those out that are looking to round out those positions. Uh, You know, I was shocked earlier this year when the second Capcom Fighting Collection scored as well as it did. I think landed at a 85, if I'm not mistaken, mid 80s. We thought that the second collection was going to do worse than the first. Seems like there's a real appetite for this, and if you can pull it off well, um, with like the quality of life pieces and just like treating the collection with the, I guess, reverence that it deserves, it can really pay off. So I will be looking at this because, again, specifically because I need potentially to fill a slot and strategically identify a remaster that would fit there. And one that's available. That's the other
Yeah,
great thing here. One that's available for cheap is kind of what I'm looking for. So this might be one that people are overlooking for the purposes of Fantasy Critic, and I think definitely some sneaky value there.
yeah, and this is another collection that's been put together by Digital Eclipse. They've done a few collections in recent years. The most recent one is the Tetris Forever, which scored an 81. So yeah, probably a solid bet. Probably an 80 floor for a Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
collection. So if you're looking for a remaster on your team, this is probably like one of the better options for sure.
Then we have Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater with an August 27th release date. I think we all kind of felt this was coming. We knew. Um, Anything else left to said about Metal Gear Solid? We've all been waiting a while for this one.
Yep.
I don't know. It's gone. Good,
Yep.
good on everybody that had it. Excited to play it. Uh, Another interesting one. I'm always a little bit skeptical of VR games, but this one in particular, Thief VR was shown with a 2025 date. The original Thief game, from what I could tell, scored a 67 on Metacritic. So I guess like the series doesn't necessarily have the best showing, and I'm not sure VR is going to make it any better.
No, hard
So
pass.
probably a
Yeah, hard
hard
pass for
pass.
this. Yeah.
The last thing that we wanted to highlight from the show with some serious value is potentially the Sword of the Sea with an August 19th release date. Now, we'll go through kind of why we think there's value here. I don't know, Marcus, why don't you kick us off?
So this game is made by a developer named Giant Squid. So they've most recently did a game called The Pathless, which I believe was a launch title for PS5. It's probably their worst reviewing game. It scored a 78, so not crazy high. They also did a game called Abzu, and I think that's in the low 80s. I don't have that score in front of me. But part of the reason that the this is game is probably getting as much buzz is because some of the original devs from Journey broke off to make Giant Squid. So this is also, and you can certainly see the Journey influence in Sword of the Sea. There's almost a shot that's very very similar, seeing a mountain in the background of the sands. And I just recently played Journey, as you know, John. So like it. Yeah, it definitely evoked Journey to me. And I think that this is, despite maybe the Pathless underperforming a little bit for the studio's pedigree, I think that Sort of the Sea, it's been one that's been anticipated for a little while. We've known about it for a little while now. And getting a date here, August 19th, I think it's, if it's available, I think it's a pretty decent bet to score pretty well. Again, you're probably looking at an 80-ish floor. So,
Yeah, yeah, you could do worse. And Journey, with 92 on Metacritic from when it released way back
mhm.
when. Obviously, that's what's driving some of this hype. It was a highly sought after pickup.
Yep.
If you look at the waiver wire bids over the past week, so people are reacting to that. But yeah, I guess it's just a matter of like what you need to fill out the rest of your roster. Anything else from the state of play that you wanted to highlight, Marcus, or discuss? Those were kind of the ones that we had seen that, were releasing this year that, we had identified some value. Anything else for the greater good on this one?
Well, I think it's probably worth at this point mentioning what wasn't there. We were,
Hmm.
I know I was virtually certain we were going to see unannounced God of War Greek project, and it wasn't here. It wasn't anywhere during Summer Games Fest for the past week, any of the events. So um, I'm a little nervous. I'm heavily invested in God of War
Uh-oh.
unannounced God of War Greek project. So I had put a lot of eggs in that basket. So I'm gonna have to give some thought as to what I want to do with that slot
Yeah.
moving forward. How long to kind of sit on it with the hopes that we still get some news relatively soon.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that we're going to see as a recurring theme as we talk about Summer Game Fest and Xbox is what's happened over the weekend. When we talk about shifting landscapes, it's changed the way people have viewed their own teams, how they're viewing other people's teams, and what they need to do now to pivot. Um, Whether you kind of cut ties and cut your losses and move on, or do you stick it out and potentially lose out on other opportunities to basically try and hope that you get a release date. So definitely something I think everybody's feeling at this point in different ways.
This year.
Moving on to Summer Game Fest. So there was a lot shown here. Again, we're going to focus on just those things that are kind of fantasy critic relevant because there's a ton that might be relevant next year, but definitely isn't relevant for today. So while we get into this is a big list. We're going to just, again, stop on where we think there's worth talking about and kind of passing over those that maybe are less valuable for fantasy critic purposes. So first off, Liza P Overture. This was the Liza P DLC, June 7th. It's already come and gone. It's already
Yep.
released, and it's sitting at an 83. Good on everybody that had that. Nothing really. The relevance here is that it's already impacting those that are competing against or have it on their rosters. So good on them. Dying Light the Beast was something we also were shown with an August 22nd release date. I believe that's the piece that's new here, where we actually know now when this is coming out. Now, I think previously in the year, we had already talked about Dying Light. I'm not high on this game purely because of the previous entries and how they were reviewed. This actually looks pretty cool, but for me, I'm staying away from it
Yeah,
despite the
I agree.
status.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It particularly at release, these games don't they. I guess this studio has maybe a bit of a history of releasing games in a bit of an unfinished state or with
Hmm.
kind of buggy and some issues. So um, I would probably stay away from this one, even if they think it looks cool. I think that they just don't have a great track record
Yeah.
for those scores initially.
Let it come out and they can prove us wrong, and then next
Yep.
time we'll have a different opinion.
Yep.
Um, Aminusha. So this one is interesting because this has a 2026, but I think it was worth mentioning because I think there was a chance. I think we had all thought there might be a chance that it was still going to be released in 2025. So at least this is confirmation now that it's not really in the running in
Yep.
terms of fantasy critic relevance. Tawa or Toa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree. I don't know much about this game, but I did see that it has a September 19th release date. Any? Do you have any way of
Not
evaluating this one? This is
not
off my
really.
list. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't have
yeah.
much to say about this one.
Yeah, I love to hear from listeners and others on Blue Sky if there is anything that we're missing on this one, because it sounds cool, but again, like it's hard to evaluate in the absence of more context. The next ones we're probably making some judgment calls here. Mecha Break is another game that was announced with a July 2nd release date, a multiplayer third-person free-to-play flight-based shooter. I'm always skeptical of games like this that we've talked about the difficulty of breaking through in the multiplayer space, especially when it comes to review scores. I, I'm passing on this one.
Yeah, I seem to remember this was shown at the Xbox showcase last summer. Um
Okay,
and I didn't think it looked great. It's just not a me
yeah,
game. So I think like and I think again that third person free to play multiplayer like no, this is not one that you want to put your eggs in the fantasy critic basket.
yeah. Wildgate is the next game shown, going into a open beta, I guess June 9th, 16th, with a July 22nd release date. It's described as a PvP multiplayer shooter game, again, multiplayer game focused on ship to ship combat. I mean, I guess the benefit here with something like this is that it's going to be in an open beta, so you should have a lot of thoughts through Reddit and other um,
Yeah,
forums that you could potentially hear about if there is anything here. So I'm not want to write it off, but again, this is one that I'm not necessarily looking at for fantasy critic relevance.
agreed.
Wu Chang Fallen Feathers is a game with a July 24th release date again this summer. Souls-like action RPG set during the late Ming Dynasty, a period with mysterious where a mysterious illness is taking root and spawning monsters. This looked like other games we have seen before.
I'm getting confused. All these games
I
look
am
the
getting
same to me,
confused
John.
also. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's I don't know if that's I think there's risk in just like providing like straight oversight when something like looks too similar that we just like we like eyes and you and I and other fantasy critic players just don't pay the attention. I think, but there is this kind of like fatigue that goes with it. I'm I'm passing. It's a hard pass for me.
hard pass. Agreed.
An interesting one: Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Okay. So September 25th, I didn't appreciate the call out of Nintendo. As someone that's had to tear himself away from Mario Kart tonight to record,
Yep.
I didn't appreciate their shot across the bow of Mario Kart World. But anyway, that's my own opinion. Not reflective of hype factor, just my personal opinions are not reflective of. Anyway, um, it is interesting that this game has shown really well before. It has an interesting concept for anybody that's dived into it. And they did show some new things, including like unique crossovers. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, Marcus, at all.
Well, not especially. I mean, we talked about this game when it was first announced earlier this year. We were fairly confident it was coming out this year, and which it is. Um, I'm not a kart racer guy, John, so I don't really have that
Yeah.
much to say.
Well, they're pulling other characters from Sega, right? I think they flagged that Persona 5's Joker is going to be in the game. I think
Right.
that's an interesting
Yeah.
way of building hype and attention on the game. Some of the mechanics look really interesting because you can like jump around and like the leader has a choice of basically shaping by using the sonic rings, basically how the rest of the track plays out.
Mm,
If that works smoothly and that is somewhat revolutionary, I think they could get rewarded for that. Um, Mario Kart World is currently sitting at an 88, I think, or 87 or 88. It's going to be compared to that no matter what.
yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I'm just skeptical of going for another kart racer in a year where it's going to be compared to Mario Kart World. But having said that, you know, I think it has potential to get into the 80s. I just don't know if it's worth the risk. I think there's safer choices out there. Maybe that's the way. Like, I don't want to be down on this game because it actually does look very cool. I think it has a chance with what they've shown to break through, but I think it's just kind of a tough thing to do with a kart racer.
That you kind of summed up exactly where I was thinking. Yeah.
Up next, Arc Raider. This had now we know it has a release date of October 30th. A sci-fi action extraction adventure game. Now, this is one I'm not super familiar with the title, and I know it's showing really well, but it's one that's getting a lot of hype because it was shown. I can't recall when, like a month ago, maybe it was a preview event or something. Like lots of people talking about this game, lots of people excited for this game. I think there's something in the air. It's one that I would actually recommend.
Mm.
And the bids from last week actually reflect that. Now, I can't say that with too much confidence because, again, you never know with a title like this how it's going to be received, but it does definitely tick a lot of the boxes at this point in time.
I think we talk about every once in a while the zeitgeist, right? And I think the zeitgeist is very positive in and around this game. That's really all I know about it. That's really all I know about it. I don't
Yeah,
again, this genre is not my genre. This type of game is not a game for me. But it feels like the people that it is for are excited about it.
yeah,
And that says something.
yeah. Because those are the people reviewing it, right?
Yeah, 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 exactly.
It's tough because we want it to be timely, but that also means less opportunity for pulling some of that together. So,
Yeah,
I think it does tick some of those boxes. I think it's a bit riskier than but where the value is here is I'm not sure it's on a lot of people's radar for fantasy critic purposes.
mm,
I think that's where it might. stand apart. Like we're about to talk about the next entry, which is Mina the Hollower, but that game is picked up by everybody already by
Yeah.
this point, right?
Yeah.
The value is somewhat gone or diminished. Um, our creator, I don't know. I think it's probably out there. So if you are interested, I could suggest do some more research, dig into it a little bit more, make yourself be comfortable with that decision, and then go for it. Yeah, and yeah, Mina the Hollower, very excited for many people. October 31st. Lots of people have banked on this being the game that comes out this year. I think it's showing really well. If you're not familiar with it, it's a pixel style game about a hollower on a mission to rescue a cursed island. But it's also, I guess, it's Yacht Club Games. Is that
That's
is
right.
that right,
Yeah.
Marcus? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they've just had proven track record, time and again. People have been super. This game has been, I think, this game has been drafted the last like 3 years
Yes.
in one of my recurring leagues. So, like, people have been waiting for this for a long time.
Yep.
Um, and I think this is going to be it. This is going to be it's a good time for it to come out.
Yeah. Shovel Knight devs, we've been waiting for this for a while, and yeah, it's going to score well. If it by any chance it happens to be available, this probably should be, of all of the games that we're going to talk about today, probably your top pickup.
So I screwed up this past weekend. So I went and checked one of my leagues and it was gone, as you
Yep.
would expect. And I just assumed that it was gone in my other league, and it wasn't. Now I was comfortable with that because actually that one is actually well filled out. It would be, I'd have to make some really tough choices. Um, I- I'm pretty confident in that league's lineup, but still, I didn't want someone else to get it, so
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still kind of disappointed in myself. But that's why you got to be on it all the time. Can't make assumptions. Keeping it going, Mio Memories in Orbit. So this is one where you play as an android, Mio, exploring the vessel and uncovering its many secrets. This had a generic 2025 release date. I don't know what this game is. Sometimes with these showcases, you watch so many of them, which I did, and all the games start blurring together.
I I
So,
I love the look of this game, John.
okay,
I think
then
that
talk about it. Yeah, go
well,
for it.
it's a 2D Metroidvania. It looks it's got some Ori vibes to it. It's more sci-fi, but it looks cool. Really good art style. I actually downloaded the demo. I have not had a
Okay.
chance to start it, but they did release a demo for it. Um, and I've actually seen this be picked up in at least one of my leagues already. So I missed out on it. I think that this probably has the potential to score okay. Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Okay, that's an interesting one because I don't think that's on a lot of people's radar. It certainly wasn't on mine.
Yep.
Next up, Seven Deadly Sins Origin. Again, with a just general 2025 date, so not as good as having that kind of solid release date. It's an open world anime RPG that returns players to the land of Britannia from the original anime. So again, this is not something I'm super familiar with. I think there's a lot more value in other titles that we've already touched on. So I'm just going to keep it going unless you want to talk about this game at all,
No,
Marcus.
let's keep going.
All right. A game that actually looks interesting and is always a tough thing to evaluate. This is called Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny. It's an RPG with Nicktoon characters, releasing in fall 2025. So obviously, kind of the licensed lens, and it looks very fun. It looks really cool. I have no idea how to judge how this is going to score review wise. It looks like a lot of people are into it. It's getting that hype, that zeitgeist that we talked about, just because of what it's doing and the characters. Like hopefully it'll have like a really great roster. But I don't know. I'm always a little. Some of these Nick games haven't performed the best. We've obviously been surprised with some of them, but I don't know. I'm passing on this.
Pass for me.
Yeah. Okay. Deadpool VR. This was a bit of a surprise. I didn't know this was coming. Starring Neil Patrick Harris, the new Marvel VR game from the MetaQuest 3 and 3S, with just a 2025 date, which makes me a little nervous. It looked cool. I don't know. It's Deadpool again, another licensed game. I think it could. VR games are always tough. Like I can't remember the last one that has scored really well. I guess Midnight Walk did okay, and that was technically a VR game, but you could also play it in
Yeah.
non VR form.
They're
I
few
don't
and
know.
far between, John. Like the kind of
Yeah,
those VR games that break through and score quite well. And like that was the one that's coming to mind is Half-Life Alex. which is in the
Yeah,
90s, right? But like
yeah.
those are few and far between. Even like these, what was that? The Arkham game. There was an
Mm-hmm.
Arkham VR game,
Yes, I remember. Yep.
and I think it did okay. So maybe
Yeah,
there's some superhero precedent. I don't know. I think it's too risky. I would definitely
too
pass.
risky. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't. There's better value out there. Let's put it that way, with
yeah,
less heartache. Lego Party, a Mario Party style game coming out in 2025. This is another one where I think this could be like a huge range of potential scores.
yep.
People love the Lego games. This is obviously trying to compete with kind of that Mario Party style, and there's room for it in the out there. But like it could be a bust as well. So again, like even though there might be some value here, I'm probably passing on this.
Pass as well.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we wanted to flag again, not is not coming out this year, it's coming out in 2026, but Resident Evil 9 was shown.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people banking on that potentially coming out this year. I've seen it in a number of leagues drafted, especially leagues where you had the ability for dropping numerous games, unlimited drops, or there's no like mid-season counter picks. This was a common one that was being picked up and now being dropped. So if we keep it moving, we then look to the weekend, and we had a whole slew of directs that really focused on highlighting indies and non-indies alike, but mostly, from the indie categories. They have the devs, wholesome direct, women-led games. There's also the PC game showcase, which is always a interesting one. We're not going to go through all those games. There were too many
No, there's
and
too
too many
many.
demos. I would
Yes.
encourage you to watch the shows. They are great, but we're not going to go through all of them. What we will do is kind of pick out the highlights for us where, again, there is fantasy relevance, and we can kind of point you in that direction because we think it's just good to be aware of it from Fantasy Critic, and also to help you with your waiver wire pickups. So, Marcus, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want to kick us off with some of the pieces that we saw that you wanted to highlight?
Sure. Let's start off with Mixtape. We've talked about this game before. It was shown again um, at the Day of the Devs. I think it was showcase, and it looks really good. I think this is very much a Marcus game. I am very excited to play it. It just has a still a nebulous 2025 release date. Um, and this was done by the same devs that did Artful Escape, so which scored I think low 80s. So I think it's probably a pretty decent bet for folks if they're willing to if it does come out this year. I'm really excited to play this game though, John. It's probably one of my more anticipated games, just on the horizon.
Great. Yeah, I agree on that front. I think it's looking very close. We've seen it in multiple showcases now. I think it's close, if
Yeah,
I were to bet. So I do hope it's this year. We also saw Moonlighter 2 again. I did it get a release? Sorry, I thought they had given a firm date. Oh, it's just okay. It's just saying summer 2025, I think.
yep,
So we're still kind
yep.
of in that holding pattern. But again, they showed it again. It looks like it's coming soon. I think people that had that are feeling pretty good. It's getting a bit more buzz than it was a couple months ago, so that's good. And definitely was, I think, a highlighted show for a number of people. One that I'm seeing get, especially in the Fantasy Critic Discord, shout out to the Fantasy Critic Discord, Consume Me
Yep.
did get a September 25th release date. Uh, I don't see it in the game, but I'm also not following this kind of narrative with this game. But there are tons of people that are very excited about this. I don't know if you're familiar with it. To me, it didn't look like something I want to play necessarily, but it's definitely getting like that kind of
Well, I hadn't heard of it
hype.
prior to this weekend, but when I saw it on the list, you had put it on the list here. I looked into it, and I I kind of feel the same way that you do. I'm not sure that this is a game for me, but I do think that it has a lot of the kind of that surrounding stuff that it bodes well for its fantasy critic relevance.
Hmm.
It won the Seamus McNally Grand Prize Award at the Independent Games Festival in March. I don't know how
Okay.
games are able to win awards when they haven't yet been released, and presumably it's been fully played and just
Yeah.
hasn't had a wide release yet. So, and those are independent games that have been released in and around like the last year, right? So that says something. And I suspect that, the topic or the subject matter of this game, it's, the kind of a semi autobiographical of one of the devs, their experience with their relationship with food, I think,
Mm,
and maybe eating disorder or something like that. So it's kind of maybe a personal, sensitive, heavy type story, which again has the potential to be maybe a little bit something a little bit different in the space.
different.
So that's always
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
innovative. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. We've seen
Yeah.
that really stand out in the past. So
So
yeah,
kind of outside of well, I'm not sure that this looks like a game that I would personally be interested in, but everything else about it, I think, shouts that this could be a really
yeah,
well performing game.
breaking through kind of on the indie scene.
Yep.
This is one where if I'm looking like if I'm in a leadership, if I'm in like leading, right, in this really gets into the nitty gritty of the strategy here. If I'm leading, I may want something with a maybe more of a secure floor, right? To
Right.
just like anchor, like keep it going, the momentum, not taking on any risk because you've already kind of like in a leadership position. But if you're in like the middle of the pack, you see where other people's teams are at, and you need to maybe play a bit of catch up. This is now where you're starting to think about where are those hidden gems that are going to break through and maybe do higher than other people are expecting that they're not looking at. This potentially could fit into a category like that. Like obviously everybody's looking for that all the time, but I think you might be willing to take on more risk where you're not necessarily as certain of the floor, but you hope for that high ceiling. Um, because it can potentially change your team and the
Yeah.
dynamic of your team. And this might be a game that fits that bill in the same vein as a Blueprints or other games that
Yep.
have kind of broken through in the past, or UFO 50 last year, where so few people were looking at it, but there was definitely conversation about how different it was. And
Yep.
so,
I
yeah,
think
I'm definitely looking at
this
this
is
game differently
exact
now.
those are perfect, um I don't know, comparables to what Consume Me could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I say, like, there's risk in it.
Hmm.
And so I think you have to be in a position where you're willing to take that on because you want to like propel yourself. Like if I'm in a
Yep.
leadership role and I'm just need like some solid 82s to like close out the
Yep.
year, like I'm not necessarily looking at this the same way.
Right.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover us off on the next couple? There's a few here that you picked out.
Yeah, so Devolver Digital, they always have their their showcase around this time of year, and their showcase this year featured a single game. It was Ball Cross Pit, Ball X Pit. It's
I
like
think
a
it's just
brick
ball pit.
breaking game, Ball Pit.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is that what it is? Ball Pit.
I think so.
Anyways, I didn't watch but I did catch a trailer. Looks cool. Devolver Digital is just generally a publisher that we should be paying attention to. It has a 2025 nebulous 2025 release date. Um, lots going on in the trailer. Like it's a very kind of chaotic looking gameplay. But again, Devolver, we have to pay attention to these. I don't know if you have anything more on that, John.
I did watch it, and if
Yeah,
they're choosing to focus on one game and kind of highlight it, I think it's worth paying attention to.
yeah,
I don't know how it's going to review, and it's just a 2025. I don't think it actually has the firm release date,
that's right. Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm not really bidding on it myself, but I could see it having some value.
yeah. In a similar vein, the next one is Possessors. It's another game from Heart Machine Games. So these guys did Hyper Light Drifter, Hyper Light Breaker, and it's being published by Devolver. It is more of a like I'm not sure if it's Metroidvania, if it's just like a 2D action platformer. Um, Looks really cool, but again, only a nebulous 2025 release date for that one. But I think there's probably some value there if it does end up coming out this year. Next, we have Fresh Tracks. This one was at the PC Games Showcase, and it's a first time dev. I think it's called they're by the name Buffalo, and the reason that this one was on my radar, it's very different. It's like a rhythm game, but you're skiing. You're on
Hmm.
skis and you're fighting enemies, and it's got a firm date, August 12th. And one of the reasons I wanted to flag it is that this was a game that was shown at PAX East this year. And on their Steam page, they had quite a few quotes from folks that had played the demo at PAX East, speaking quite positively about the game, like the best game of their show, the best game they played that weekend or whatever. And again, those are types of things that I put stock into, like
Yeah.
when critics or when kind of media people are going in and they play lots of games, and when they're saying that this is the best thing I played all weekend, that
Hmm.
says something. So it's something,
That's
they're
a good
doing
one.
something different. Like
Yeah.
there's not a lot out here, and it has a firm date, August 12th. So maybe something
Yeah.
to keep an eye on.
No, thank you for doing that. Like I always find with the PC game showcase, I always just kind of like glaze
Yeah.
over because there's so much shown. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard to pick out value, and usually like burnt out by that point, in terms of seeing everything. So that's a good catch. I think it's worth looking into.
Yeah, and then this one I think was shown a couple different places over the past week, but is Ratatan. So this is by the same devs that have done Patapon, and it's very done in a very similar style. It's kind of like a spiritual successor. Um, it's coming out in July, but it is early access, so make note of that. If you are planning to pick it up, make sure that that's an eligible game for you. I think that it looks good from what I heard. Was it Greg Miller talking about it on Kind of Funny? He's a big Patapon fan, and he really liked the game. So I think that that probably bodes well for its chances of at least being a good game. Just whether or not the early access thing
That's the
is,
part I was going to flag.
yeah,
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 it's like
yeah,
great that it's coming, but for so many of us, I think it may be a non-starter.
yep,
Um, right? Like unless it's going to get scored, unless your league is configured the right way, just to be cautious of that early access. There were a lot of games like that are coming to early access that I think we have to be mindful of when we're talking about fantasy critic value for sure.
yep.
So before we just jump into the Xbox showcase, which I think has a whole slew of other things we want to talk about, I will flag one thing that we also learned, and we're not doing a full news coverage, but Mugenics did get delayed to 2026. That is another major piece of the fantasy critic puzzle because so many people out there drafted that game early and high. People had put a lot of stock into that game, and now we know it's pushed into 2026. So for those similar to kind of the Resident Evil, what we learned, it's now no longer viable. They're going to be looking for replacements. So just be mindful if you had put that on your team to be quickly looking to correct for that. So Xbox, another slew of games here to talk about. Starting off, let's talk about Outer Worlds 2. It has an October 29th date. I'm guessing that this is gone. I'm guessing that this is going to score very well and that uh, it's already gone in 100% of leagues. I would be shocked if it wasn't. And if it isn't, you pick it up immediately ASAP. Like I'm not even considering this as fantasy critic relevant because it's so,
Totally. Yeah,
yeah,
it would. Yeah, I think it's more just to point out that it did get its date officially. It was
stated.
supposed
Yeah.
it, and it's kind of crazy. Look at Obsidian go. Avowed. They're going to be doing another game that we talk about in just a
Yeah.
moment here, and Outer Worlds 2 all in the same year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fall is stacked. Yeah.
Yes.
I think so many leagues are actually not going to be decided until late fall. So
Hmm.
that'll be interesting in its own right. Persona 4 Revival, no date, like a 2-second clip.
Yep.
Not this year, likely, at least from what we can tell. But hey, Marcus and I got this one half right last week.
Yep.
If you go back to episode 7, we were super hyped and really positive on this being shown, and we're gonna take our flowers because you know what, we don't have
Yep.
many to show for it. So
That's
yeah,
right.
it looked great. When it does come, maybe it'll be this year. Who knows? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they did show hardware, and we'll stop here quickly because I think it is fantasy critical relevant. They did show new hardware partnership with ROG Ally, and in that trailer, they heavily featured Hollow Knight Silk Song. And for those that know the lore and going back a couple years, why that's relevant to be shown at Xbox Showcase. And they did indicate, I guess, I don't know if it was a press release or something after that, it would be releasing alongside the hardware. So
Yeah.
Silksong to be released alongside later this year or
Yep.
holiday this year, I think they said.
Yeah.
which was then later apparently corrected by Team Cherry, saying that it could be sooner. It's not necessarily tied to the actual launch date of the console, so it could be
Right.
sooner, which is actually a positive thing for those of us with that game on our rosters. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, this is such a
I
mess.
it's it's so
It's
crazy
like a
that
meme at this point
it
for every
is.
gamer out there.
Yeah, it's just so crazy that they can't give us more firm information. I don't know. I feel like this is a good sign for
Yeah.
people owners of Hollow Knight. I think that we're a lot closer to, but I'm still not like, I think you're crazy if you think that this is 100% certain that this is
Oh
coming out
yeah.
this year, right? But we're a lot closer today than we were a week ago, a week and a
Sure.
half ago, right?
I'm
So
going down with the ship, Marcus. You know, you were talking about God
yeah,
of War. At least you have it out.
yeah.
I'm not. I'm going down with the ship. It's going to be December 1st, and I'm
Yeah,
going to be holding out hope this year. I'm
man.
going to be one of those people. There's
Yeah.
still a chance it gets shown and shadow dropped at the Game Awards, and I'm going to go down with that Silk Song ship. So,
I wish they wouldn't
well,
have, if they were making this announcement, I wish they didn't tie it to the handheld in any way,
yeah,
shape, or form. Like it just muddles the message and it makes everything that's
yeah.
been confusing about this game from the beginning, even like it doesn't clarify anything. It's just continuing to be confusing. So it's like, I don't know. I would have just
At this
liked,
point, yeah, at this point, I think Team Cherries is going to do their own thing. I think they're going to have their own
yeah,
showcase, 15-minute thing at some point
maybe
in the
at that
summer.
museum in Australia that they're,
Maybe. Like I that's what
yeah,
I think is going to happen.
yeah.
Like they showed it at Nintendo, they showed it at Xbox. Like I just feel like they're going to do their own thing and they're going to have a set announcement. And I do think it's going to be this year. I am feeling confident, but yeah, it would be great to have a goddamn date.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, let's keep it moving. Another game that we somewhat correctly kind of called out last episode, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. So we had talked about kind of an unannounced Call of Duty game with likely to show. I think we were like we were low on this because it was like A, most likely to happen, but also B, probably not the best, like knock it out of the park scoring. Like it has a decent floor, but it's also not the biggest upside.
Yep.
So no real date here either, which I think is the most concerning part around a Call of Duty. They closed the show with this also, I think, which is getting a lot of blowback, and I kind of agree. Like they showed that really cool like sci-fi trailer, and it ended up being Call of Duty, which was weird,
Yeah.
and showed nothing of the game itself. So actually, I'm a little bit lower on this than I was last week. Um, I'm not sure I would put that bid in for this game at this point in time because it's not a good narrative around this, and you don't know if it's going to have a date. It's a very, very different scenario than where we thought we were 1 week ago or last episode.
I agree completely. Yeah, I think that there are of the we're gonna kind of maybe pick our favorites as we get to the end here, but this will not be on my favorites to pick up
Same,
list. Yeah,
same. A bit of a surprise. High on Life 2 announced for 2025. Cool looking. It looked good in terms of what it showed, but the original got a 69 on Open Critic. Not going to
yeah,
be bidding on this, even though it
yeah.
looked
And for
cool.
that reason,
You know?
I'm out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Ninja Gaiden 4 did get an October 21st release date. I think that one probably was picked up already by almost every league. So I think it's continuing to show pretty well. I'm still not like super high on it in terms of review scores. I think it has a decent chance to perform in the 80s.
yeah.
But I'm not overly worried about
I
those
think
that
your best
pick
case
sign up.
scenario with that is like an 82, 83. Honestly, like,
Hmm,
yeah,
I think I could go a little higher,
yeah,
but I'm not worried. I think
yeah.
in terms of where it's landed on my competitors' rosters, I'm not super worried.
Exactly.
Grounded 2 did get shown, and now this I think is somewhat relevant. July 2025, so it's coming very soon. The original received an 82 on Open Critic, which I think is a decent score and likely with a sequel could potentially do better, especially what they showed of it. But they are releasing it as a game preview, which I think is treated as early
I
access
think it's
in
basically the
July.
same as early access,
It
right?
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And so you really have to be careful with this. I think that's going to confuse a lot of people. And I think if you're eligible, it might be worth it if it's eligible to, if it does get scored, which I think it probably will. I think it has enough individuals interested in it that people will want to review it, even if it is in early access. Um, but again, will that count for your own individual league? I think is the relevant piece here.
Exactly.
An interesting one that they showed is a new game called Keeper with an October 17th release date. Do you want to run this through this one a little bit, Marcus?
Well, it looks like a so this is the newest game by Double Fine. So they've done a ton, but their most recent game is Psychonauts 2, which scored an 89 on OpenCritic.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is you play as a lighthouse
Hmm.
with like a little bird that sits on top of it, and I guess it's a platformer.
Look like some sort
Yeah,
of puzzle platformer. Yeah,
puzzle platformer. Yeah,
I think
it
it
looks
looks cool.
gorgeous. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I mean, sometimes weird is good,
Yeah,
and the developer team I think has a good track record. I mean, I don't know if it's going to hit 89. I'm not
yeah,
expecting that, but it gives me confidence. I think it looks great, and they have. I think it's worth a pickup. I think this is actually one with some sneaky value behind
I
it.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
Um, Similar to some of the other games where people are probably not even paying attention to it for fantasy critic purposes. I'm trying to see. Yeah, it was not at least on the list from last week. I didn't see it. I guess
Well, yeah, it
it
wouldn't
was
have been
announced
eligible.
Sunday,
Yep.
so we'll see if it actually gets if it actually like translates into pickups this week. But I actually like that one a lot for fantasy critic purposes. Next up was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This is DLC Order of the Giants with a September 4th release date. I'm very stoked because I did actually have this on one of my leagues and I was like getting a little nervous that we hadn't seen it. And
Yep.
if it wasn't shown, I'd be dropping that DLC. The fact that it's there, I feel very comfortable. The original got an 87, the base game got an 87 on OpenCritic. Looked cool. Continuing that Indiana Jones thread, hopefully it lives up to the same hype because I'm feeling very good about having this on one of my teams.
Yep. I think that if you got it, you're happy. If you can pick it up, I think that this has the potential to be right in and around that main game score. So, um,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, very happy with that one. And I loved Indiana Jones, the actual game, so I'm happy to
Same.
remind myself that I can play DLC in September. Um, Last one we're going to talk about here is Chronos: The New Dawn. Do you want to walk us through this? I mean, this is a with a 2025 date, and I think it's a really interesting one to discuss
Yeah.
because they didn't close the show with this, but they could have.
Yeah. It looks really good. So this is I think we mentioned it, maybe it wasn't last episode, but the one before. Um so this is Bloober Team's newest game. It's a new IP. They had most recently they've done a bunch of things in the past, all in kind of that horror genre, but they most recently did the Silent Hill 2 remake, which did really, really well. So I don't know. I think this is actually I think there's a probably a pretty good chance we've been seeing it for a while now, and I think there's a pretty good chance it comes out this year,
Mhm.
even though it only has the 2025 release date at this point. And I think it also has the potential to score pretty good. This
Yeah,
would be,
it showed
yeah,
really well.
yeah,
Super interesting concept, really good look, really smooth. It the 2025 without the hard date is the part that's throwing me off a little bit. I don't
yep,
know if that's just them trying to figure out where they want to slot it into the
hmm,
year, like why, or if they're just like making sure. I'm not quite certain what would hold them back. Like to your point, we had seen it a bunch before. Um, but this is where do you stay? Like I actually think this is not a bad again like maybe if you're in the middle of the pack and you need something to like swing for the fences and other people in a leadership spot might not want to take a risk on something that doesn't have a date. Again, they're
yeah,
probably and like leader mindset, they're going to be probably going after things that are just more confirmed or likely have a date, but or and you just need to like pick something up that could potentially change the landscape a little bit. This might be one to look at.
definitely. I think that I
Yeah.
like this one too. We're on the same page with a lot of this stuff this week,
Well, that's
John.
good because
Yeah,
hopefully this advice is hitting for some people out there. I
yeah,
really liked watching the shows. I like finding out what's coming up next, but I also always keep an eye on, oh crap, how that's how is
mhm,
this going to give my opponent something that they can go and pick up? How is this going to
yes,
change how I view my team and the potential value? So before we close out today, we've gone through a lot of games, a lot of names. Do you want to like pick our kind of top value prop positions here for the listeners so that, sum it up. Where do you think they really should be putting their attention and their efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to because there's a bunch here that I really like. I would say that the few standouts for me are the Luminous game, if it still happens to be available. There would have been a weekend of bidding for that one already.
Right.
I really like Cairn. I really like
Hmm.
Keeper, as you had said as well. Um, Mixtape and Sword
Hmm.
of the Sea, or those are the five that I had written down as kind of the standouts for me. There are a few others as well, like the Chronos game looks great. That Fresh Tracks, I think, is a really interesting game that has some good stuff. And actually, one that I didn't have written down, but I think I should have, is Consume Me. Consume
Right.
Me, John. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think of that list that you just laid out, the only one that I'm a little bit scared of is probably Mixtape.
Mm,
I think it's probably close, truthfully, but I just think, when you're evaluating what's out there, um, so I think we're pretty aligned on kind of where we are. But if you're valuing what is out there, you kind of want something with a little bit more certainty, given the point at which we are in the year, right?
yep.
I'll add maybe a couple more just to that list that you highlighted because I think I agree with all those. I know you're a little bit lower on this one, but for me, Final Fantasy Tactics, again, if it's still out there, probably has a more safe floor that could potentially help out someone that's looking to kind of firm up their roster. Mina the Hollower, again, it's likely not available, but you should be checking. Don't make the same mistake I did. If it's out there, that one is going to change again the shape and the nature of your league. So make sure you're in the hunt for that if it's still out there. Um, I do like Keeper as well. The only other one I'll kind of maybe go back to is Arc Raider. I
Mm,
do think that game has the right mix right now in terms of the zeitgeist to potentially break through and be something of note this year. I keep hearing about it again to your point earlier of those that are out there that are talking about that game. So be aware of it. I think there's some that you highlighted um, that I'd probably go to first before that game. That might be at the bottom of this list. Keeper and Cairn and Consumi, probably higher up in those, but I wouldn't lose sight of Arc Raider. I think that could
yeah.
has the potential to make a splash later this year as well.
I'm going to say two more bonus ones here, John. So I think that
Yeah, go for it.
the Mortal Kombat collection is a really
Yes.
good one if you're looking for a remaster. And then
Yeah.
maybe my sleeper is
Hmm.
Neo Memories in Orbit. I really like the look of that game,
Yeah.
and I think it has some potential to score really well.
So that's going to do it for us. We've provided hopefully a pretty comprehensive fantasy critic overview of what has happened over the past week. There's going to be more to come. Like I said, we're going to have our kind of regularly scheduled programming back up and running towards the end of this month. But we really wanted to get this out to you as quickly as possible to make sure that you had someone to bounce your ideas off of. Engage with us on Blue Sky. Let us know if you disagree or if you have other thoughts about what we saw this weekend. This was your emergency hype factor broadcast. We hope we've served you well, and make sure you're getting those waiver wire uh, bids processed. Don't forget. So Marcus, if they want to engage with you, where can the good listeners find you?
On Blue Sky at Marcus O'Neill 79.
And for me, I'm on Blue Sky at John32. We're also in the Fantasy Critic Discord, so hit us up there if you're there. Hype Factor also is on both Blue Sky and on X, and you can find us there, and that's where listeners can send us in questions, comments. Like I said, if you have some thoughts on what we saw over the last week, please let us know. Happy to incorporate that into our episodes as time goes on. And as always, if you like what you hear, please consider leaving a positive 5-star review. It is always much appreciated. Until next time, everyone, get hyped.
Remember, the information provided is for entertainment purposes only. Hype Factor does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any advice or predictions offered. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are solely responsible for any decisions you make based on the information provided. We strongly encourage you to fantasy critic responsibly. And remember, this is just a game, and in no way impacts your status as a gamer. Hype Factor cannot be held responsible for any damages resulting from bad picks, drops, or overall Fs on your season.